Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Rewilded Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Lydia Joy, and today we're diving deep into the world of mold, minerals, and sleep. If you've been following me on my journey, you know I've shared a lot about my mineral journey, especially over the last few episodes. My own process of rebuilding voltage in my system after leaving a water damaged home, and exploring the thyroid gut circadian triangle. So, those episodes give a big picture framework for what we're going to talk about today. And here's the thing. A lot of people are still in that reactive space that I talked about being in that episode after I left my final mold home. And it's kind of this feeling of being constantly on edge, exhausted, honestly, even terrified about what mold might be doing to their health and their daily life. And I get it. It took me years to untangle all of this and understand the connection between mold, sleep, and mineral balance. So today, I want to dial in a little. I want to talk about why mold doesn't just make you lie awake at night. I want to talk about how it drives inflammation, it can burn up your mineral reserves, and disrupt the rhythms your body needs to regulate sleep, stress, and energy. I also want to clarify something important about my approach. I'm not here to give a biomedical lecture, and I'm not coming at this from a fear based framework. The biomedical framing is like the traditional medical lens. It's looking at mold as an isolated villain and focusing solely on elimination, right? That's not the lens I take. Instead, I look at your inner ecosystem, your mineral landscape, and the environmental and nervous system context, because that's where the real restoration happens. So here's the thing about mold. It's not just something you get rid of, right, and then forget about it. For many of us who've lived in water damaged homes or chronically damp environments, mold, its residues can actually persist inside the body, in tissues and sinuses, and even bound to minerals. And so, in light of that, your body is still constantly interacting with it, whether you realize it or not. And that doesn't necessarily mean you're still being exposed to new spores all the time. It means your internal ecosystem, your immune system, your nervous system, all your metabolic pathways, they're all continually adjusting to what's already there. So, even after leaving the environment where mold was active, your body can still carry residual mycotoxins and adaptively hold on to them. This ongoing interaction can subtly or dramatically influence your sleep and your energy and your stress responses and your mineral balance because your systems are still working around the clock to neutralize, detoxify, and recalibrate. And this is why so many people can feel hyperreactive. Um, it can be, a wide range of hyperreactive, but it can be to foods, it could be to herbs, it could be to supplements, it could be to environmental triggers. It's not just a sensitivity, it's not just in your head. Your body is navigating the aftermath of exposure and actively trying to restore balance. Here's a deeper layer. Mold's influence isn't just chemical, it's ecological and systemic. Mycotoxins can trigger low grade inflammation, it can disrupt circadian rhythms, and burn through key minerals like magnesium, calcium, sodium, potassium, all of which your body needs for sleep, nervous system support, energy. So when your sleep is disrupted, it's not just insomnia, it's really your mineral reserves being depleted while your nervous system stays on high alert. And this is why I take a different approach from mainstream biomedical narratives. Instead of framing mold as that single villain or the root cause or, right? I look at it through a more of a vitalist ecological lens, right? The terrain inside you, the rhythms of your body, the nutrients, the minerals that support repair, and the subtle ways your nervous system and sleep patterns are impacted by all of it. When we see mold this way, we shift from a mindset of kill the mold, to really recalibrating the ecosystem, which is really supporting your body's natural defenses and especially restoring deep regenerative sleep. So, I want to talk about minerals under siege, um, particularly in this scenario where you've been under chronic stress for whatever reason. But, if you've lived in water damaged housing and it's had its impact on you and there's been chronic stress. I want to dive into the big four minerals because they govern your cellular voltage, your nervous system regulation, a word I'm finding to be very confusing these days, and sleep. Okay. Um, Magnesium, calcium, sodium, and potassium. All right. These aren't just about bones and electrolytes, right? They're very much conductors of your body's energy, your stress response, and even regenerative rhythms. All right. So I like to say magnesium is the conductor, but it's also like the brake pedal when your nervous system is revving too high. It's also essential for producing ATP or cellular energy currency because it's involved in many of the steps of that, And so without adequate magnesium intake reserves, not burning it all back up, right? Your cells can't fully fire and your nerves stay overexcited and your muscles too, including your heart. They all struggle to coordinate. And it's the minerals, magnesium particularly helps to keep calcium, sodium, and potassium in harmony. And this helps to make sure that spark ignition in your cells is just right for some simplicity's sake. Now, calcium also plays a dual role. It's structural, yes. We're all familiar with that one, but it's also a critical part of cellular voltage. Calcium helps your cells respond properly to stress and it supports your nervous system, your sleep, and things that we need to help support calcium include, getting enough sunlight. That's a whole, you know, understanding that many people are coming to these days. What you put in your mouth, um, the right nutrients, and even lifestyle practices like, movement and weight bearing things, right? And they all play a role to support calcium. Not just take more calcium, right? That way you're helping your cells maintain energy, and your nervous system can do what it's supposed to do well instead of, getting stuck in one extreme or another. Then we have sodium and potassium. They're like the push and pull, right? They govern your cell's fluid balance, your nerve transmission, and your overall voltage. And mold exposure and chronic stress don't just drain one mineral, they can burn through both sodium and potassium, leaving your cellular environment less stable. And this imbalance contributes to disrupted sleep, hyperreactivity to stimuli, and, a sense of running on empty, even if you're, doing all the right things, like you're eating and you're resting and, you're like doing the thing. Um, so when these four minerals are out of balance, your nervous system's constantly compensating. Your body's trying to hold voltage while inflammation runs high, mycotoxins circulate, and the nervous system stays on that hyper alert. So Sleep isn't just disrupted because of racing thoughts or stress hormones. It's disrupted because your cells don't have the minerals they need to fire and rest correctly. And this sets the stage for the next layer, how mold can actually bind and sequester additional minerals like copper, iron, zinc, and cobalt, making them unavailable and then compounding the sleep issues and the energy issues and the nervous system challenges. So that's what I want to explore. Now, we have, I'm going to call it mold and the mineral heist with copper, iron, zinc, and cobalt. So, okay, so we explored the big four: magnesium, calcium, sodium, and potassium. Now I want to dive into how mold can actively sequester additional minerals that can compound the stress on all these things, right? It's not just like a metaphorical stealing, it's a real biochemical process. So, there are certain mycotoxins and they produce compounds called siderophores. They're like these tiny biochemical claws, and these claws are highly selective and they grab iron and copper molecules from your body and hold onto them tightly. The minerals are still physically present in your system, but they're chemically altered and functionally unavailable. So your cells can't use them to make energy, to build tissues, to support neurotransmitter function. And this is why you might notice low energy, restless nights, delayed recovery, even if you're, supplementing. Okay. Now, before I go further, I want to say a little something about redox reactions, because this is the chemistry that underpins sequestration. So, redox stands for reduction oxidation. In simple terms, it's like a type of chemical reaction where electrons are transferred between molecules, changing their energy state. And the mold siderophores use these reactions to bind minerals like iron and copper, effectively putting them into a different charge state that your cells can't easily access. And so your body has to work to restore these minerals to their functional form, basically reclaiming the tools your cells need, right? So even when you supplement copper, iron, or zinc, your body may struggle to use these minerals until the mold related sequestration pressure eases. It's not about waiting for mold to vanish entirely. It's about supporting your inner ecosystem, your mineral reserves, detox pathways, nervous system, all the things, right? So that the minerals can be mobilized effectively and your energy and sleep can start to normalize. Zinc also suffers in this process because these minerals interact. Copper, iron, and zinc, they participate in overlapping enzymatic and redox pathways. And when copper and iron are sequestered, zinc dependent enzymes can't function optimally. Even if your zinc intake is sufficient, or maybe you think it's sufficient. um, Similarly, cobalt can become functionally limited because vitamin B12 metabolism depends on balanced cobalt levels, which in turn relies on overall mineral stability. So, disruption in one corner of this system ripples across the others, affecting energy, sleep, and nervous system function. Okay, so picture it like this: your minerals are tools in a workshop. Mold's siderophores act like claws that snatch the tools and hold them in a different compartment. You can see them, but they're offline. So you can't use them to build, repair, or energize your body. So by focusing on, I call it terrain optimization, right? Like your mineral support, your detox pathways, your basic foundational needs, creating safety, spaciousness, right? The proper nourishment, cleaning up your light environment, reconnecting with nature, grounding, like all these things, you start to reclaim these tools. The minerals become bioavailable again. Your cells can fire efficiently. Your nervous system can finally rest and regenerate. And so this sets the stage for the next layer where we kind of can start to understand how all of these mineral interactions, the big four, the mold bound minerals, affect your sleep rhythms. And I think that's very important so that you can understand what's really going on. Otherwise, I don't know, a lot of people try to do all these sleep hacks and all these things and chase all these things, right? So basically, when minerals go missing, um, you know, a lot of things can go down, right? So we know that sleep is not just like rest, right? It's like a carefully orchestrated biological symphony. Minerals act like the conductors and musicians, keeping every movement in rhythm. So when magnesium, calcium, sodium, potassium, iron, copper, zinc, and cobalt are working in harmony in a better balance and appropriate behaviors, they're there, they're available for use. Your nervous system can cycle between states of alertness and rest with ease. But when mold steps in and hijacks these minerals, the performance is thrown off. And the result is restless nights, fragmented sleep, or the inability to drop into the deep restorative phases. Okay, so I want to break it down. I want to bring in the minerals again for a minute here. So, magnesium normally calms excitatory activity in the brain, helping neurons shut down at night. And without it, your nervous system feels on edge, like a car engine that won't turn off. This is why I tell my clients to if they are using magnesium topically or orally, definitely take it in the later part of the day. Calcium, especially if sleep's an issue. Calcium triggers the release of melatonin, which is in part a sleep hormone. And so if calcium availability is low, your circadian rhythm drifts and you may struggle to fall asleep or even stay asleep. Then sodium and potassium regulate electrical signaling in your cells. So imbalances here can cause nocturnal wake ups, right? Like that classic 2 a.m. bolt awake, often linked with adrenal and nervous system stress. Then iron and copper, when sequestered by mold, impact mitochondrial energy and neurotransmitter balance. And this can mean that your brain struggles to produce dopamine and serotonin in proper cycles, leaving your sleep architecture shallow and unrefreshing. How many people can say that? I mean, it feels like everyone I talk to. Zinc is critical for GABA activity, the neurotransmitter that tells your brain to cool down. So, if zinc is thrown off balance by the copper and iron sequestration, you may feel wired but tired. And then cobalt is the core of vitamin B12. It's essential for methylation and myelin repair. So, if cobalt becomes functionally limited, your nervous system can't rest and repair during sleep. So think of sleep like a house cleaning crew that arrives at night. The crew needs tools, mops, brooms, vacuums to do the job. Your minerals are those tools. But when mold binds them up or throws them into disarray, the crew shows up empty handed. Instead of cleaning and restoring your nervous system, the night passes in a haze of tossing, turning, and fragmented rest. So, this is why people living with mold or have a mold history often describe that sleep that is never refreshing, even if they're like out for the count, like even for 8 hours. It's the architecture of sleep, the natural cycling through deep sleep, through REM and the lighter phases. Is broken. So the nervous system doesn't get the deep reset it needs, and it leaves the body feeling more depleted. Now, the good news is that when we can support the mineral repletion and ease that sequestration pressure, it can start to give your nervous system its tools back. right? So slowly the orchestra tunes itself, right? Melatonin starts to work better again and flow. GABA pathways calm. Mitochondrial energy restores. The night once again becomes a place of true renewal. Okay. So if there's one thing I want people to understand and walk away with, is that your sleep struggles are not random, right? And they're not just about stress hormones or bad habits, although those things are true as well. So please, pay attention, clean your life up, right? So that you can optimize your sleep. But they're also deeply connected to how your minerals are working or not working inside your body, which also correlates to your current stress adaptation pattern, right? Which is why we're talking about long-term chronic stress due to mold exposure as one piece. It's not the only piece ever, because for me, it wasn't the only factor in my life, but it's definitely a large one. I remember so many nights when I was utterly exhausted but still wired, and my body was like humming on overdrive while begging for rest. And I didn't realize that mold had been hijacking my minerals, like a pickpocket stealing my keys, right? Um, and that theft actually really changed everything. So it was no wonder that my sleep was so out of whack, right? My cells literally couldn't hold the charge they needed to downshift. I always tell my clients it takes energy to sleep well. When I say energy, you have to think of the reserve in your system. And when you think of reserve in your system, part of that is having a really healthy bank account of minerals and mineral balance. Okay, so here's the threads again that I've woven together. Right, minerals set the rhythm of your nervous system: magnesium, calcium, sodium, potassium. They're not just nutrients. They're not just something you need. They're the voltage regulators that let your cells fire, rest, and reset. So without them, your nervous system becomes reactive, inflamed, and hypersensitive, like an orchestra without a conductor. I don't know, maybe that's not the best analogy, but you get where I'm going with this, right? Um, and then mold can basically hijack your mineral reserves, or just whatever minerals you do have, right? Um, Certain mycotoxins, they act like those biochemical claws. They grab the copper, they grab the iron. Other cofactors, they pull them out of circulation. And that just creates a hidden layer of depletion that standard testing or surface level fixes often miss. And then sleep disruption, it's a downstream effect, right? So when the minerals are out of balance like this from the long-term patterns, right, the nightly symphony of sleep just falls apart. So you don't get the deep repair, you don't get that reset, and then you wake up unrefreshed, fragmented, or even wired but tired. So we want to think in terms of ecosystems, not hacks, band-aids, one root cause, right? Um, because the truth about healing is it's not about piling on a sleep aid, right? Or fix my sleep only, right? It's about investigating your unique terrain. Like, what's going on? What led to this? What's going on with the mineral system, the gut circadian rhythm, your nervous system, all these pieces that are part of the whole. And then working to create conditions that allow your system to recalibrate. And so this is where the personal investigation really, really matters, you guys. Like, you can read about sleep on the internet and it may not actually match your story of why your sleep is so disrupted, right? And that's why I like using the tools that I do with the hair tissue mineral analysis, the biome effects, a deep dive into your health history, what's going on in your life, right? Because this reveals your body's story, right? What's going on? What got depleted? Where are the stress patterns coming from? Where do they live? And if you lived in water damaged homes, how is that potentially silently steering the ship? Right? So again, no chasing quick fixes is ever going to really deeply restore the rhythm, or rebuild the terrain, right? Or reclaim your minerals and give your nervous system the structure and space it needs to regenerate. Because that's the foundation for lasting sleep, resilience, and energy. So, mold doesn't just make you reactive, it steals your spark. And minerals, they're not just nutrients we need to eat in a certain amount or take. They really run the show. They're your voltage, your rhythm, your rest. So when you learn to protect and support your whole system and the minerals in mind, which is what I've been talking about all these years, your sleep really can return and restore, right? Okay. So, if this resonated with you and maybe you recognize that's one piece of the puzzle for you, that whole wired but tired feeling, the hyperreactivity, the restless nights, and you want support, you don't have to navigate this alone. That's what I'm here for. And I'm not here to chase any quick fix or blind supplementation, really, as you know. um, I want to investigate your unique terrain, understand the hidden ways mold and mineral imbalances may be affecting your sleep, energy, nervous system, your whole life, right? And create a roadmap to restore balance. So, this is what we do together when we work together. We look at your whole ecosystem, your life adaptation story, and all that good stuff so you can truly rebuild, um, and regain resiliency. And sleeping better is one of the pieces of that, right? So if you're wanting to stop guessing and start restoring, you can learn more below about the way we could work together. There's two um, packages that I offer. And guys, I just want to say this, like, I feel like there's this ideological situation with, like, there is a way to heal this specific thing that I have, right? There is no perfection here, right? Um, if your nervous system can finally downshift and your body's going to be able to regenerate. So the goal is not some kind of perfect, I do this exact thing and I get this exact outcome. The goal is to let your body transition back to um, vitality, resilience, and really allow you to do the restoration and regeneration work that the body wants to do. And it will do because the body heals itself. We just have to learn how to cooperate with it, give it the right support, create the right spaciousness and environment for it, and it will do what it needs to do. All right. So just remember, your minerals are your voltage, your rhythm is your rest. You protect them, you restore them, and then you can reclaim your sleep and so much more. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you found something to take away from it. Until next time, stay wild and stay well.